A new rule could allow foster care and adoption agencies to deny their services to LGBTQ couples for religious reasons. The Trump administration wants to roll back Obama-era regulations that banned discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. CBS News chief legal correspondent Jan Crawford has more from Washington.
It was the most incredible gift that I could have received, and just want to give that to someone else.
As someone who was adopted, Carrie Ann Hamilton always knew she would do the same when it came time to expand her family. She and her partner LJ are in the early stages of the process. But a proposed rule by the Department of Health and Human Services would allow foster care and adoption agencies to reject LGBTQ families on religious grounds. The move would also apply to other programs receiving federal grants, including those that help with HIV prevention or homelessness.
What this rule does is it eliminates the number of willing and loving and safe families for children who are in need of homes, and that to me is very troubling.
Proponents of the new rule dispute that claim. Travis Weber is with the Family Research Council, a Christian advocacy group.
This really just allows a bigger pool of organizations and parents who can pick from an organization that aligns with their own beliefs and philosophy on the family and on where a child should be placed.
In a statement, the Family Equality Council, an advocacy group for LGBTQ families, said the rule will further limit the pool of loving homes available to America's 440,000 children living in foster care and puts providers' interest in discriminating over the needs of youth in care.
It's really unfair to call someone's long-held religious beliefs to classify that as discrimination. It's very important that these organizations have the ability to place these children and still operate according to their convictions.
A 2018 study from UCLA found an estimated 114,000 same-sex couples were raising children in the U.S. in 2016.
I think this issue is really bigger than politics. This is about children, and we are supposed to protect these children, not implement rules that hurt them.
Now, the proposed rule could reportedly be published in the Federal Register as early as today. That would be followed by a 30-day comment period. Jan Crawford, CBS News, Washington. And for more on this, let's bring in Ilya Shapiro. He is the director of the Robert A. Levy Center for Constitutional Studies at the Cato Institute. Welcome, Ilya. So the White House says this isn't about preventing the LGBTQ community from adopting. So what is their exact position on this then?
Right. The way adoption works, the government doesn't directly set up kids with families, but it contracts it out to various kinds of private, nonprofit organizations, some of whom have been historically religious. And at the very end of the Obama administration, they put in a rule, the Obama administration did, to prevent agencies that are religious or that their religious beliefs prevent them from placing kids with same-sex couples. And now this administration is reversing that. So ideally, we want to do something that helps place more kids. And so this isn't restricting same-sex couples from participating in that, but it is expanding the pool of eligible agencies to again include those that do not place with same-sex couples.
So the Obama-era rule did classify sexual orientation and gender identity as protected from discrimination. Is this essentially a step to change those protections, to roll back that ruling?
Well, it does roll back that regulatory decision, yes. And remember, this is not pursuant to a court case. This is not a law that Congress has passed. The Supreme Court this very year is considering a series of cases in the employment discrimination front about whether the Title VII of the employment discrimination law includes already sexual orientation and gender identity. So it's not clear at all that even the agency had the capability to do what what it was previously doing. What this does, what the Trump administration is doing, is freezing in amber what was the state of the law before this late Obama regulation. And there's a lot of litigation all over the country. Some Catholic charities and others have been stopped from adoption practices in Massachusetts, in Philadelphia. This is the set of ongoing litigation. It's a difficult situation. At the end of the day, historically, we have had a lot of religiously based adoption agencies. To my mind, as long as there's not a monopoly by those that won't place with same-sex families, I think the more people working to get foster kids adopted, I think the better.
Right, sure. And is there a concern, though, by these organizations? Because clearly the children's welfare is their primary concern. Is there a concern that these children not being placed in homes are worse off than being placed in homes that perhaps do not have the exact makeup that these religious organizations would prefer?
Well, I'm not an adoption expert. I'm a constitutional lawyer. But the point is, as judges evaluate these adoption proceedings, there are more foster kids now than families willing to adopt. And a lot of LGBTQ families have stepped up to adopt high-risk kids or difficult situations, as have a lot of very religious families and religious agencies. I think we don't really want to be cutting off anyone, and there's a way of accommodating everyone's interest without disqualifying, a big population of one or the other.
But will this new Trump administration rule face a challenge in the courts, do you think?
Well, there is ongoing litigation over similar developments in the states. I mentioned Massachusetts and Pennsylvania. There might be a challenge to this, certainly. What the Supreme Court does this year with that employment discrimination case, the Title VII case, is going to be important for this. And, of course, the House has already passed the Equality Act, which has some relationship to the provision of public services and protections for same-sex couples.
All right. Well, Ilya Shapiro, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.